I hope you've been enjoying the conference so far. We are now going to go ahead with our panel discussion. So we can go ahead and bring on everyone else up to the screen. I think, is Pam available? I thought I heard that she was still going to be able to join us. Okay. Well, nonetheless, she'll join us as she is able. So we already have a couple questions. I know Dave is not able to join us. I know he obviously had the lesson on caring for people in the environment. I know that Kelly has a question as it relates to that. So I think we'll circle back to that one after. Maybe some others here might be able to or would like to kind of take that on. But let's go ahead and put up Lakeisha's question. Yep. So the question is from Lakeisha. I grew up in the foster care system. My husband and I lead a small group in North Carolina. It has always been my dream to support aged out foster youth for God. Where would you recommend I start? I'm not sure if this is maybe an Ingrid, if you wanted to start with maybe your thoughts, and anyone else can chime in.
Sure. We actually have an initiative in Atlanta that we're doing just that. There is an organization that I am so sorry, this is a new thing, and so I'm blanking a little bit on the name of the organization, but they are, let's call it a group home for lack of a better way of saying it. But it is for youth, young adults, because they've aged out, but they can't quite be on their own yet. And I know that other organizations exist like this nationwide. And what we're doing is providing some resources to them, providing some supplies and things of that nature. They need material things, right? So the idea, though, is if we're going to be giving material items, is there a way that we can make it relational? I'm always throwing the meal idea out there, because the minute you share a meal, it changes the dynamic tremendously. But I would encourage you, Lakeisha, to look up organizations that are in your community that you can partner with. There are ones that do exist that they do just that. Again, kind of like a group home type of a thing. Almost always they need things, for sure.
Okay.
I think I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You had something?
No, I was just going to say, I think another one that might be good is actually reaching out to state defects there in North Carolina. Because I know just on the state side, unless they know of an organization, they're always scrambling looking for folks as well. And let me see. I'll see if I can find a number of contact to send your way, and I'll send it to you, Toma.
Okay. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and if you want to send me an email, Lakeisha, I can also follow up with the panelists and maybe get some additional information for you if you'd like. So the next question I see here, and this was again, I think, directed towards Dave, but if you guys would like to answer, you're definitely welcome to. And that's from Kelly Wessler. How can I inspire others to be more kind to creation and the environment without being pushy?
I don't think there's a way to do it without being pushy. No, I'm just being honest. I think it's just more about just being loving in it. Just knowing how people are. People just, if you aren't pushy, people don't respond to you. So you got to kind of have that being. I mean, I don't mean pushy in a bad way, but I mean just from the sense of it's the whole squeaky wheel gets the most attention, and so just really understanding that, hey, I kind of have to be more outside the shell. And I work with some of the folks who are in the environmental space, and when I say they're on top of it, it's they are on top of things. And so I don't see it as pushy. I guess I'm just used to it at this point, but I don't think there's a way around it. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I would add something, and maybe others may have things also. I think from some of the things I'm hearing what Dave shared is really showing people the connection that they have with the environment and how they also benefit from the environment. And so it's more a paradigm shift in how people think that pulls on their heartstrings, so that it's not just a, you know, uh, just a, I guess I say, interaction, a transaction with the environment, but more a relationship. The environment provides goods for me. The environment is something that helps me. And I think as people, I think it's even going through Dave's book. He does talk a lot about being rooted in your place, getting to know your neighborhood and the birds that are there, and just the uniqueness of of the land that you live in. I think that would inspire people to care more about the environment. And I think you can just try to inspire. I think, I know Dante to a degree, so he's not pushy. He's definitely a man of conviction. There may be a way you need to do that to a degree, but I think also finding ways to inspire people, those that would want to listen, and kind of going from there is what I would suggest. It seems like you had something you were thinking, Doug?
Well, I had two very quick thoughts. Since it's a biblical issue, when we have an opportunity to teach or preach or share scripture, point to those scriptures. Because it's a big theme in the Bible. The other idea, very different thought, is I don't want to say make fun of people, but challenge people who buy into conspiracy theories. A lot of people buy into conspiracy theories that, the Earth's not really in trouble.
Yeah.
It's the climate deniers. But it's more than that. It's also bad theology. They'll say, well, 2 Peter 3 says it's all going to burn, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That needs to be challenged as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. Yes, that theology has made its way into a number of things. So I think unpacking that will definitely help too. I think I'll just give a plug for Sunday schools. I think a lot of these things take time to unpack. Whether it's, again, Sunday school, whether it's listening to podcasts more, even together. I think it's kind of dangerous to a degree to just study things on your own. I think it is important to study. I know Douglas Jacoby and other teachers would probably say the same thing, but I would recommend that it's done in community. But some of these topics are so big, you can't just listen to one sermon. You need like a lot of time to really unpack them. So that's one thing I would recommend also. Do you guys have questions of each other that might give others a chance to kind of think about some questions they might have also? And I have a few questions too, but I want to hold those till a little bit later.
I'd love to hear your questions.
All right, I'll go ahead and start with
the
questions I have. So I have one for you, Mr. Dante. So I know, obviously, being involved with more involved with the political world than probably most of us to a degree. And I got to believe that the last few years have been very challenging for you. Did Georgia become red state most recently, or am I not?
No, I think people are just tired. I think they're tired of the back and forth. I don't think it's ever been a red versus blue thing as much as it's been I can't find anywhere to live. I think home prices here in Georgia skyrocketed 40% in the last year. You're looking at food prices, gas prices. It's just a lot. I'm looking at 13% of the kids in our community are homeless, and we live in one of the wealthiest communities in America. We're top 10 education. We have more Fortune 500 companies here than anywhere else in America. And so it's like, for there to be all this wealth and yet all this poverty as well is just baffling, but it just shows greed. It shows all these things. And so I think that when your when you look at voting, right, a majority of these voters, they're not top 10 wealthy. You know what I'm saying? Like they're dealing with real issues here in the world. And so when you're not speaking about how to fix those real issues, there's no incentive or motivation to go vote. And that's what we're dealing with. And so, we got some work to do. And I think that's why I really push folks to really, really get involved, actually understand the community, know the community. One of the things one of my mentors said is, going into the schools, you'll learn exactly what's wrong with your community going into the schools, because the kids are the first ones impacted by it. And I've seen a lot of it. I started mentoring at my daughter's school. Her principal asked me to start up the Super Dads mentoring group. So we've been doing that. And then we had a bunch of our fifth graders that went to the middle school, and they found me on TikTok and were just like, oh, are you coming over here? And it's like, you get to the middle school and it's like, wow, like I used to always wonder how when I left elementary school and went to middle school, everybody kind of knew what my home life was like. You know what I'm saying? And when I went from middle school to high school, and it was like, dang, how all y'all know? And it's like, I hate to say it, but it's like the issues kind of follow you. And it's like, if you're around and you see it. And so it's just, I just really feel for the kids. My heart goes out to them. And, that was part of the reason why, we started Juneteenth out here in Sandy Springs, used it as a means of, fundraising to really provide for some of the kids in the area, and just, finding unique opportunities like that to be more than just a voice saying, go vote, but they're actually saying, okay, they're helping to meet needs in the community.
Yeah. And I think that seems like it's a common refrain, if you will, from what Dave shared, what I think you shared, and what Ingrid shared, which is basically just start getting involved with your community. Because I think, and the community then seems to take a life of its own as to, you can help here. Have you thought about this? There's mentoring, there's a garden you can, work on. And so I think we need to just be humble, which I think was the whole point of, Dave's lesson towards the end, at least, which is, start with prayer, just start getting involved, and, things will become more clear as you go. But I do think you kind of look at things from a different level, not to keep kind of going back to yourself, Dante, but it seems like you think more like strategically, in the sense of, I'm going to get involved with my community. That's on one level, but I'm also involved in these other things on this other level. And not to go down that path too much right now, but I think at the same time, we shouldn't just have the mindset, some of us, right, which is, I'm just going to, I'm not saying just, but I'm saying we can also think in other ways too that are more strategic, as our heart is so inclined. Yeah. Looks like we have some additional questions here. So Jesse has a question, says, how can we use the current political climate to draw disciples closer to God and to each other? I guess let's first define the current political climate to make sure we're talking about the same thing. I think the current political climate, and you guys can chime in, is, I think, one of discouragement, if I'm honest. At least I'm just saying from my perspective. I think there's also some that are very jubilant, but I think those would probably get a D time with Douglas Jacoby, perhaps, about Christian nationalism. So there may be some kind of backtracking on that excitement. So I would say there's discouragement. So if we take that as a vantage point, how can the current political climate of discouragement, I would put it that way, draw disciples closer to God? Let's just use that premise, and hopefully I'm understanding what Jesse's saying. So what are you guys' thoughts? We'll start with an outside perspective, Mr. Tabani Mashaba, and then I think Ingrid, if you want to chime in with some thoughts, and if there's anyone sipping tea, then maybe we can get a tea drinker's perspective. And we won't talk about 1776. We'll let that one go. Even though he's American.
Thank you, Toma. The perspective from the outsider, from the African boy. I think for me, I will speak from our experience here in terms of understanding from your context, discouragements. And I think we're actually living in one at the moment. broken dreams and just a feeling of despondency and just like, hey, there's no hope here. And you know, when we're talking about in our families and in the church, many Christians, disciples, just really struggling, you know. But I will say that one of the things that has been very helpful is, you know, to really lean more into understanding who is really, I don't know if the word is in control, but to really begin to dig deep into the story of God and God's power, what God is doing, that God is not on holiday.
Yep.
I know that there is an expression in our language, in Shona, where to loosely translate it in English, it's like, we wish God would intervene, you know. And so most of the time we sort of are learning to correct each other on that, to say, hey, God is already intervened, you know, he is here, you know, he is working. And it's just that sometimes maybe it's the lenses that we're using to look at things that may be the distortion here. But to go back to scripture and understand that, you know, Jesus really talks about, you know, he rules. And so this is an opportunity for us, you know, to share that gospel message. But more than that, it's also to look at how we can meet each other's needs. I find it's an opportunity to actually, yes, Doug, how did you figure that out, man?
I had to really concentrate.
Yes, that's exactly the Shona expression. So we're seeing it also as an opportunity to meet each other's needs, in terms of, because it comes at different levels, you know. For our context is sometimes people are literally hungry, like literally do not have food, or don't have school fees for their kids, or they don't have a job, or they you know, so things are at that level. And then there's the level of other brothers and sisters who are in business, and the environment in the country is not permitting, you know, for them to conduct business, so to speak. You know, because like now in Zimbabwe, you can't just get a loan from the bank. You can't get US dollars from the bank, but we're a US dollar economy. You can't get it from the bank. You know, it's you get it from the parallel market or black market. And they say it's illegal, but at the same time, the government won't allow fuel to be sold in the local currency. It has to be sold in US dollars. So people are under so much pressure. And so what we've seen is that it's an opportunity to really serve each other, to figure out how to support each other, how to network. We've learned how to network across other countries in Southern Africa, you know, to sort of have pipelines of saying, how do disciples, you know, do business together? How do we facilitate for one another? How do we cover for each other? You know, there's so many innovations that have come out of this that I feel have created an opportunity I love to call it an ecosystem. You know, we create an ecosystem that actually functions outside of the conventional system, you know, so to speak. And we've funny enough, we've learned that from you know, there's a lot of people groups in our country that actually have been doing this for years. They survive. They, you know, for example, the Indian community, the Jewish community, the European community, they figured out how to, you know, they do business with each other. They cover each other, they give each other contracts. So there's a whole ecosystem, you know. And so one of the things I've been trying to encourage African communal people, because I used to be in the meat business, dealt a lot in beef. It's just to give you an example. So, for example, and this is to do with helping each other, empowering each other, even a mindset change. For example, you have a lot of African people with cattle, cows, mombes, we call them. So, for example, on average, a quote unquote a communal farmer or a poor person has got, not less than 10, 15, 20 beasts or cattle, cows, and mombe. Yes, Doug, mombe. So if you sell, if you create a cycle and you can sell 2 mombes or cows in a month, what you can actually end up with is about $1,000 US, 1.5, depending on the quality and the size. And so what I've been saying is, listen, guys, if you have a village and you create a business entity where each villager or each homestead has a central homestead where we come there to buy the cattle, and you sell 2 mombes every month, and then one of you doesn't have to do mombes, does the cattle feed, and then you supply the other guys, they sell the mombes, and then what you do, you figure out, okay, so what else can we do? Okay, where can we get some of our children to train to become veterinarians to take care of our livestock? Can we open a school? What do teachers want? Teachers want to come to a place where they can get running some water and electricity. You put a solar power for them and so on. And before you know it, another guy opens a shop, another guy opens this there. And
so basically create like a community, in some ways bartering, but also just general agreement where everyone's working together.
Exactly.
To meet each other's needs.
Exactly. So in the church, we've been trying to do that in the church as well. And we've seen it improving people's livelihoods and so
That's
on.
Awesome.
So it's really looking again and saying, but this is what the scriptures are all about: community. This is what the church is about. That's the power of the church, is being able to encourage each other, to look at each other's needs, as James says. You just don't say, "Hey, go well and be fed," but you do something about it. And so I think it's an amazing opportunity for us to actually practice image bearing, practice community, practice compassion, and practice that. Because I think that we are looking too much to politicians to transform our lives. And I like what Doug was saying, that is tantamount to idolatry, because God is the one that will meet our needs. And how does he do that? He does that through and in the community that we're part of, and then as we do that, even the outside world can see the love that we have and the conviction we have, and it's something that we can also channel out into our communities. Just the love.
What are your thoughts, Ingrid? Would you have a similar sentiment to that, or how would you?
Absolutely. I can't stop nodding my head. Yes. You didn't hear my words, but I was with you.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, everything that you're saying, because I think that I believe that God has set the stage, or allowed the stage to be set with the political climate that we have. We have this incredible opportunity to step up. And I believe that God is saying, okay, I've given you what you need. You have the word. You have my desires. How many scriptures talk about justice and God's, doesn't like injustices, everybody to be treated fairly, all of those things. Well, I believe that we are in a place that we can absolutely show those things. And some of us might be thinking, I don't have the connections. I don't know the political stuff. I don't know the government stuff like Dante does, but start small, right? Start small. Are there things in our church family that people are feeling unheard and unloved, and they don't fit in? I mean, that's where the collaboration, the showing the love and all of those things, just in thinking about an answer to the question, like, what do we do in this political climate? I think that we are called to action, and this is kind of a shove. I believe God is kind of shoving us, saying, I've trained you, now go and do it. Go and do it. And as far as collaborating, and I love the story that you were just telling with all the networking and everybody coming together. Talk about amplifying strengths. I mean, there's nothing more unifying and collaborative than that. I have this, you have that skill, you have that amazing talent. Let's come together and let's make our community better together. And I think that, starting with our house churches, our family groups, our small groups at church, right? And then you go bigger, and the ripple effect is there. When we're talking about what God expects of us, okay, yeah, we're supposed to honor the rulers of this nation. We're supposed to pay our taxes. We're supposed to follow the rules, but people are not, they're not the one that we're looking for to save, to bring us inner peace, to do anything like that. And I know in my church here, I'm in Minneapolis. I was incredibly blessed to have Michael Burns here for 10 years easily. And what he taught and the things, when George Floyd and all that, I'm in the hub of all that. And we were so fortunate to have Michael Burns with us at that time. And the mantra of our church was, go love people, go love people. Right. We're not talking about social justice. We're talking biblical justice and what God desires for his people and what God asks his people to do. Go do it. And there's many things that we can do, big and small. There's many things that we can do.
Thank you. So we have a question here from Lakeisha. I think these are coming from Lakeisha and Jesse. So this one I think is Lakeisha. We have a number of women in our ministry and area dealing with chronic pain and mental health challenges. How can we encourage them to live with joy? So I think this is our Grand Rapids joyful sister. Who could that be? Do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure, Toma. Thank you, Letitia, for that question. That definitely shows your heart in just wanting to meet the needs of the women. And what I've learned is we have such an amazing model in Jesus. And we also have good and bad examples in the Bible. We have Job's friends and how he dealt with chronic pain, mental health. Those friends were not encouraging. So first, I just want to encourage us not to imitate that example. So a couple of steps that we can avoid that Job's friends did. Avoid assumptions. Make sure our theology is correct, that the suffering, their pain, that's not the time to come and fix it. Or I remember there was a time when I was going through chronic pain, and one of the sisters came to visit me, and she was quick to ask me, are you coming to the meeting tomorrow? And I just didn't feel very encouraged. And so some of the things that Jesus did when Mary was in chronic pain, I think Ingrid mentioned this, what did Jesus do? Jesus just sat and wept. So sometimes we don't even need to say anything. We need to validate the pain. So the whole concept of sparkle is when our brains, when we realize we're seen, we are loved, we are cherished, we get to access joy. Think about Stephen when he was in pain. They were throwing stones at him. And what did Jesus do? He looked up and he could see Jesus's face, and Jesus was standing up. And Stephen was able to access joy in that moment of pain and grief just by Jesus's presence. So thank you, Letitia, for that question, because just being present and making sure somebody's with them, visiting, loving, sitting, validating that pain, and just the fact that someone can feel seen and loved, they're able to enjoy that glad to be with you moment and access joy. So hope that's helpful.
Yes, and I think it kind of reminds me of, one of the ways we get to know Jesus is through our relationships with one another. And I think that definitely can be obviously a source of joy. So thank you for that. For this one, I'm going to see if we can have Doug and Tabani, and the next one will be for Mr. Dante. Question is, what strategies and approaches can be used to effectively advocate for change within a congregation where Black members in leadership are often dismissed and not given a voice? And I think, Doug, I know you've been in ministry for 20 years. You may have actually come across this exact same thing, perhaps. And then I think, Tabani, obviously you can provide some insights from Zimbabwe and maybe your time in Southern Africa.
Wow. You're asking someone who may be part of the problem for the solution. Yes, I've been in a lot of ministries, dozens of them in the last almost 50 years since I was baptized. Wow. I think we need some honest discussions over meals, some honest meetings without recrimination or judgment, where part or all of the church, including, I'm assuming this is a minority member issue, but where people can say really what they think and how they feel. Usually when white guys try to make this happen, they want to do it over a weekend or maybe over a workshop or a single session. And they want to think that, okay, now we've dealt with it. Well, this is nothing that majority members like me can possibly sort out quickly. And it's not a perfect parallel, but I think the apostles' wisdom at Acts 6 may speak to us. There were people who were being overlooked. Now, in this case, it wasn't about leadership. It was the distribution of food, but they empowered the people they put over the issue were people from that same group. So the Grecian widows were being overlooked. They put 7 Greek disciples, not Jewish background disciples, but Greek disciples in charge, and they just left it with them. And they trusted them that this would work. Too often, we want to hold control. Of course, I said at the beginning of my comment, maybe you shouldn't even listen to me because I may be part of the problem, because there's a blindness that we majority members have. We don't see everything, and we can't possibly feel. So probably I should shut my mouth here.
Tabani? Thanks for your humility, Mr. Doug.
Thanks, Doug. Great response. Yeah, it is a very dicey situation, and I love the example of Acts chapter 6. Well, in my church here in Zimbabwe, we are predominantly Black, congregations. But then when we go, to the south of our border in South Africa, we have quite a population of white disciples and so on. And over the years, we've seen. I know one of the churches, Pretoria, we've seen splits and so on, and issues. Lost a lot of white people there, and then I know currently we actually have a situation in the church in South Africa where we now have this Black Hebrew movement or Black Israelite, and then it has sort of created another subunit they call the Bantu Hebrew, the Bantu Israel, where they say the Bantu people are actually Hebrews. And so we have a number of members that were members of the church that have championed this and have left the church, and they continue to circulate all this information and doctrine and targeting a lot of these campus students. Because you understand also there's a background, there's a context for South Africa with apartheid and inequality and things like that. So it raises a lot of emotions. But when it comes to church leadership, I think one of the things I've picked even in some of these sessions I run called Digging Deeper, where I get a lot of ordinary members from across Southern Africa that join they give me a lot of feedback and frustration from the Black community of the feeling of imposition of certain cultural issues that Black folk don't so much resonate with, and it is really created, some animosity and resentments, and we actually have a bit of a crisis right now, right there, and I think that what could have helped, because again, like Doug alluded to, they had Michael Burns come to do a workshop on racial issues, and it was, I think at most it was like a 2-hour session, and then for feedback I heard was like the Q&A was 15 minutes, and a lot of the Black folk had a lot of things to share, and so I agree that it's a process that could even need a whole year to unpack. Lots of conversations, lots of behind the scenes sitting down and listening and hearing, because to be honest, people are sitting on two different sides of the fence. What a Black South African has gone through is very different to what a white South African has gone through. I'll give you an example before I shut up here. About 11, 12 years ago, I was in South Africa, and I was in a car with a couple of Black brothers, and Nelson Mandela was still alive. And I was like, whoa, you guys, man, are so lucky to have such an icon and a hero that you call your own. And, I was surprised. This brother said to me, hey, bro, wait, whose hero is Mandela? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they said, well, Mandela is not a Black man's hero. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And they said, Mandela is a white man's hero. And I'm like, whoa, what, explain this to me. And they raised a couple of issues. They felt like, the system remains the same. He's done very well to protect the white folk, that they had a soft landing into the transition into Black majority rule, and his brand is managed by white people. Everything about him is managed by white people. He lives in a mansion owned by these big miners, white people, and things like that. So it opened my eyes to basically how nationally people feel, and which is now things that spill into the church. So one brother was saying he's not happy because he knows certain white brothers in the church that are still sitting as beneficiary to stolen land. And he says, so what does that mean when a disciple needs to repent? When you repent, you return what you stole. And these guys are still sitting with land they stole. And so you have all these things, and it's all entangled. There's an entanglement with all these things. And so I think that it's only prudent and wise for the church leadership to really sit and ask questions and listen and really take time and not be in a hurry, and listen so that you can understand what is really going on under the surface. And I think when that is done, and I love what my sister Pam just said, I'll steal a leaf from that, where she says, chronic pain and mental health issues, people want to feel heard, their pain validated. They just want you to be there. Jesus was just there. And I think that the same principle will apply, just to listen, because it's not their fault what has happened. It's something that is a systemic thing. But I think just being there, hear, listen, it will bring healing and trust. And then from there, we continue to teach and encourage and encourage.
So hopefully that is helpful. My daily workouts. I'm sure you're very healthy and fit by now. But I think the general insight is, I don't want to get myself in trouble here. The general insight with that is listening and really making sure people are heard. And this is not a quick process. This is going to take some time. And if we're not willing, as Doug shared, to really allow those who are in challenging situations to have a voice, then I can say we haven't really even begun to address the problem. That's my take. Those are kind of my words. So just so. Okay, next one. This is for Dante. See if we can sort through this one together. I didn't totally understand it, but it says by Elizabeth Guns, I believe, on the love for each other, everyone will see that we are disciples. How is that a light that can inspire the world around us to take more to and see God's light? To care more to and see God's light.
You know, when I excuse me, when I think about love to me is an action verb, right? It's what are you going to do? And so when we're saying we're called to love, when I look at Jesus, when I look at his character, I see that he loved people in the ways that they needed to be loved. The man that was blind, he needed his vision. How did he love him? He restored his vision. And so I think that's why when you look back at those recorded miracles, why they were so impactful, because these are examples and actions of him loving people the way they need to be loved the most. And I think it kind of honestly feeds back into the last question we were just having within the ministry, and as it pertains to African Americans. It all just comes down to love and honesty, and I think that as we all focus and continue to be honest and loving towards one another. When I say loving, it's an action verb. It's not just, hey, bro, I love you, or hey, sis, I love you. It's like, no, with that love, how do you show it? In your marriage, you can tell your wife, or your husband, you love him every day, but if you're not faithful to him, what are your actions showing? So I think that's where we have to get to is, okay, we're saying that we love folks. We're saying that we're gonna love folks the way Jesus loved them. We're gonna be a light in this world the way he was, or we're gonna strive to be a light in this world the way he was a light in this world. It's like, okay, what does that mean, and what action can we put behind those things? Because I think a lot of the frustrations that people outside the church have is the action behind our words. And I think the more that they can see that there are action behind our words, the more that you'll see many of our children coming back into the church. I think the more that you'll see us dealing with race issues in a more healthy way. And I think it's what I see about the Bible, right, is regardless of how bad things are, David's affair with Bathsheba, right? The Bible is completely honest about everything that happened, right? But then it shows what happened after. How did they repent after? How did they change after? How did they make an impact after such things happen? And I think that's something that we have to continuously focus on growing in is that action and making an impact. Because, that's, for a majority of people, their love language is you showing up. That's just what it is. Right?
Good point.
Like, that's just what it is. And I think we're in such a capitalistic society, and it's not just America, it's globally, right? Where we can look and we can see that people have, don't have lights, don't have food, don't have these things. And we're like, well, just come to church. And it's like, it's hard for me to see God in this. And I'm saying them, it's hard for them to see God in this when the lights are off and there's no food or there's no gas. And we just have to be honest about these things aren't always in their control, and I think what I've been really convicted by here lately is seeing the community that God was building. That Old Testament, he was always talking about a nation of people and caring for the strangers, loving them. And one part that people often forget about is, like, when they talk about the Israelites, is when they came out of Egypt, they came out of mixed multitude. That means Egyptians came with them. That means there were other nations that came with them. And that's why I really love, and Ingrid, I really appreciate you talking about the shared humanity. We get lost so much in and what people look like, their race, their gender, all these things, when in reality, these things don't matter. Like, we all descended from Adam and Eve. We are all still related somehow, some way. And if we could just see ourselves in that manner, we could be so much more effective reaching people and bringing them into the house of God.
Thank you. Thank you. Some common threads there. So from Maryland, she asks, there seems to be a lot of cross-faith strategies utilized to support communities. Can you elaborate on ways to increase the church's impact by working together with organizations? Ingrid, seems like this one would be one you would love to tackle.
I'm rereading the question, so I'm sorry, one second. I love the fact that more and more churches are collaborating with different faiths. I love that because at the end of the day, we've all been talking about it. It's about building community. It's about righting the wrongs. You know, there are so many communities. You know, I'm in Minneapolis, and like any large city, you have your suburbs, you have your downtown, and you know, where I am in the suburbs, very, very different from North Minneapolis. And our church actually partnered with another church in North Minneapolis, and we did a Juneteenth event with them this past summer, actually 2 years in a row now. But the point is, our church, we are predominantly white. I know that we want to be all nations and all colors and all that. And we have a lot of ethnicities in our church, but we are predominantly white. And this other church is a Baptist church, and it is definitely not white. And so I love this collaboration and this partnership because we came together and we just said, look, we just want to better the community. What can we do to support? We have resources. How can we best support? We have volunteers. What do you need? Not us coming in and, you know, again, like, hey, we've got a great idea. They run a food pantry. They run a food pantry every Saturday. And it's a big undertaking. And it was just, I think, looking for those things. And I support it 100%. I think that it honors God, like exponentially, you know, people coming together, people of different backgrounds, people of different core beliefs, maybe. It doesn't matter. Like we just heard, we're all human beings. We're all created from Adam and Eve, and you know, assuming that's our foundation that we believe. But the point is, God expects us to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to push the boundaries of our comfort zone and expand our comfort zone. I think we're called to it. And certainly Jesus gives us that example over and over again in the Gospels and, you know, all the stories. And I think that once we have decided, I'm okay being a little uncomfortable, then we look at all the other pieces and it all comes together. And this person that I think I have nothing in common with, where's my common ground? Do we have similar feelings? You know, all that. I love what has been said already, but going into a community that is under-resourced and just sitting and lamenting, like Jesus lamented, you know, and he gave time for that. He gave time to feel the way he felt. And my gosh, how relatable was Jesus? You know, I mean, I get emotional because it blows me away that God went to that extreme for us, you know, to feel pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, to feel it the way that we feel it. And I think that is, you know, talk about being a light in the world. I was kind of reading some of the other questions, and I think I'm lumping some things together. Forgive me, but being a light in the world, in my eyes, is simply, I'm going to allow God to use me. I'm going to be the vehicle to bring it to my community. And whoever wants to get in my little red wagon, this is what we're doing. I have a vision, I have a passion, I have a dream. But the big picture, like the bullseye of what I'm really trying to hit is I just want to honor God. And I think that if we all fall on our faces, we all make mistakes. Yes, yes. But man, if we could just all have the bullseye of, I just want to honor God. I want people to like me, but I don't care what people think about me. I care what God thinks about me, you know? And if we could just kind of get out of our own way sometimes, it doesn't matter what the religion is. It doesn't matter. Are you doing good together? I think that's what we're called to do.
Thank you. So we have a question from my sister in Florida. She's Jamaican too. I'm just throwing that out there. She's a very fast runner. She probably hangs out with my daily workouts. Question is, what can a retired educator do to help address the deficit that will result from book banning on true American history in our public schools? I'm currently in Florida. Dante, you guys are neighbors. It's probably appropriate for you to take that one, I would think.
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that we did up here is, and one of the things why I just, when opportunities came across to really organize and lead, one of the things I made an objective of is we're gonna flip some school board seats. It's a Black issue, white issue. It's how do we put somebody in office that reflects the much wider view of the community, and where that started from is it started from me showing up at some of the PTO meetings. If there's a school that you're still connected with, whether it's your old school, getting involved with the SGC, but also showing up to the school board meetings in your area. When there are opportunities for public comment on things that you're passionate about, being able to speak up, because at many of these, whether it's city council meetings, legislative hearings, school board meetings, a majority of the time when these laws are being passed, people aren't there. They're not present. And I'm just being honest. And so by the time that folks realize that a certain law has been passed, they're reacting to it instead of being proactive. And so being able to just show up, if there's a particular group, whether it's a women's rights group, a mom's demand action group, whatever it is, figuring out where your space is going to be so that you can tie in and do work. And what it is I think people forget how small the numbers are, right, in terms of legislation and what gets passed. And I think that was what, in my mind, made Dr. King so effective, right? When you look at how low the numbers are of people who actually vote, they're extremely small. When you look at the number of representatives, again, we got John Ossoff in office, and he wrote legislation for prison reform, and he brought all the other senators from around America together, and they voted. He got the votes he needed, and President Biden signed it. And so I think people forget how small these numbers are. And so what I encourage folks to do is find a group that supports you, that you can support, get involved with them, whatever the work is, and also I really do think you got to be present in the school. So whether it's a school you used to work at or a school that maybe you say, hey, I want to get involved here. Because even with the school governance councils, community leaders, you don't have to be a parent or work at the school. You can be a community leader, get elected to one of those positions, and also work to set curriculums. You have control over the budgets. The political system is so vast that there are so many opportunities to plug into that, for me, the biggest thing is just get plugged in, and just as you start to see opportunities come to you, plug into those as well. Because I'll just be honest. I mean, I think everything that we're doing right now is a reaction to what's already been done. And I think that if these are the things, if if Black history is what we're concerned about, if book banning, whatever the issues are that we're concerned about, be proactive now and stay involved, stay engaged, because too many people just they get riled up after things have happened, and by the time they've happened, it's a lot harder to roll things back compared to being on top of it from the beginning. And I mean, that's honestly what saved us in Georgia when it came to the voter suppression laws and everything that they wrote, is we were there from the beginning. We were working on the ground from the beginning, so that when it dropped, we were in a place to respond and not have to, run up the hill to gain ground. We were already there. So I hope that made sense. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, we have 5 minutes. We have one last question. This is actually one that I had. And then I would actually like to ask all the speakers if you can send me in an email. Well, I won't do it just for time's sake. Maybe some of your favorite books that you've read recently. Then we can send that out in an email to those that participated. They might be interested in some of the things that you guys are reading that have impacted you. But my question is to Tabani. I think there's a way to read the Bible correctly and the way to read the Bible incorrectly. And I say this because the Pharisees killed Jesus. And also, well, the Bible has been used in many terrible ways. I don't want to go down that path at this point. But what would be a correct way, in your estimation, to read the Bible that brings us more to the heart of Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, these kinds of things, but doesn't result in us trying to use the Bible as a weapon, that kind of thing, if you know what I'm getting at. So what are your thoughts, Mr. Tabani?
In a few words, is that any reading of the Bible that contradicts the character of Jesus is problematic.
Yep.
I think for me, I always want to make sure that as I read the Bible, you are looking at the character of Jesus, and also to look at the overall theme of Scripture. What is God doing? Rather than getting caught in the details. It's like a mosaic, a mosaic painting. If you zoom too much, you get lost, it becomes blurred. But when you zoom out, you can see the beautiful, picture, because now you've got the whole scenario, the whole story, and so that is all about the character of God and what He's doing and all that. So that wherever you find yourself in Scripture, you ask yourself, how does this fit into the grander picture, and how does this jog or jive with the character of Jesus? That's I would just quickly say that, but I know I'm oversimplifying here.
Yeah. I think one of the things real quickly also was, I think reading it in community was one of the things that I had heard, but also finding ways to connect with people, as in communities, as you're living out the Scripture. So it's not like an academic only kind of a thing. So, okay. No, that's very, very helpful. So I've already got some emails coming through. I will definitely send those out. But hopefully everyone that was able to take the Saturday out of, the time today to just listen to the conference and absorb some of the lessons and, just reflect on some of the questions that were, posed. Hopefully you were able to get some great nourishment from this time. And thank you to all the speakers. If you know any of them personally, definitely, thank them also for their time of, preparing the lessons and then delivering them and so forth. And I think it's even more than that, because I really try not to just ask people who will necessarily give a good lesson, but their lives also represent what they're sharing, which is the intent anyway. And so, you definitely have some quality people at the same time who have been able to participate in the conference and deliver the lessons. So thank you so much for your time. Till the next conference or the next time we're able to get together. One last plug. We do have Sunday school for those of you that might be interested. You could reach out to me via email if you'd like to join. I think one of the big things that even Dante was sharing is that we need to connect with people who are going in the same direction, same interests, these kinds of things. Otherwise, it's very hard to keep going. I know God has given us a spirit and everything, but I think uniting with other people is something we definitely need to do to make that impact that God has called us to. So thanks so much for your time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.